Now let me bring on my good friend. Again, he is truly one of the experts in his field. I don't know anybody that does what he does with the success record he has. And he studied with the greats. I mean, Bandler, Cleveland, Pickus. I mean, he's just one of these guys who seeks out the top guys in that area, and he just gets close to them and learns and becomes one with the universe, with their universe, and absorbs it. And he's going to share his unique brand of applying this stuff for you to your business. Please welcome James Setu.
Thanks, Jim.
Yeah, man.
And I train with David. I paid to train with David. I paid to be here today. That's how much I value the training that we get out here and the things that we're doing. So anyway, we're going to go into a few things. We have some people who are going to be, unfortunately, leaving us early today, so I want to cover some things for them first, so we can make sure we get into some really important stuff for them as well, so they have some cool stuff to take home that they can use. Now, the interesting thing about this is that we're going to go into a little bit more on the criteria and values, because for me, criteria and values are really where the juice is on this stuff. To move somebody off of an objection or just in sales or personal interactions, dating, all these types of things, you have to understand where they're coming from, where they are, be in their world. And you don't know that if you're just guessing, unless you're a psychic, you know, and we all have some level of psychic ability, but unless you're really well trained or really gifted, I wouldn't trust it. You know, if you needed to make a sale or you wanted to get a date. Now, the whole thing about this, the interesting about this is that there's a bit of a loop to it. Now, let's see if I can work this crazy pen. Okay, so you have C and V, right? You have rapport, which we've been working on a lot, and we're going to be doing some very cool things that I learned a while ago from Tom Vizzini on kinesthetic rapport, right? And then you end up feeding back the criteria and values to get your result. So feed them back, C and V, and you get results. The interesting thing about this is that, as Kenrick says, with rapport, anything is possible. Without rapport, nothing is possible. The interesting thing is, you can get rapport first to get the criteria and values, but the act of getting the criteria and values creates tremendous rapport in the person. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to learn how to artfully elicit the criteria and values. So the interesting thing is David gave you some really great information on echo technique. And echo technique works really well. It's very quick. You don't have to think that much, because once you train yourself to just feed back the information they're giving you, it's very easy. But sometimes you want to get deeper. You want to create a really powerful rapport. And to do that, you have to soften how you ask the question, what's important about X? So, if I were to ask you, JP, when you think about buying something,
Right.
what's important for you about this thing?
Value, I guess.
Value. Okay. I understand that. Value is really important. That's where the echo technique comes in. But just so I understand you better, what does value mean for you? Because obviously it means different things for different people.
Mm-hmm.
So what does it mean for you?
That's a good question.
Breaking, even though I don't like to break these things, whenever somebody says that in response to your question, they are hooked. Because when they say, that's a good question, they've gone really deep inside, they've gone into trance to figure that out. So I know that's a really good question. So I really want to understand for you, what's important for you about value.
I would think it depends, the value would have different meanings depending on what I'm purchasing.
Uh-huh, sure. Think of something that you'd like to purchase.
Well,
Sure.
okay, like for example, this seminar,
Mm-hmm.
how do I express this? I have an objective, and how close will this get me to my objective? There's a
Mhm.
value, so it just, that would be the value for me.
Right.
I don't know.
Okay, so, just so I'm absolutely with you on that, and I really need to understand, because I want to make sure you're getting the value that you want. Ultimately, what will having the skills from this course get you in terms of getting closer to your objective?
The skills from this course to get me, monetary goals,
Mm-hmm.
business goals. The biggest thing would be freedom of expression to get goals.
Mhm.
To use this as an expressive means to get goals.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, because that freedom's really important for you.
Mm-hmm.
To be flexible, to be able to do all types of things, because ultimately, that's what it's all about. Really, what you want to do is take these skills and use them cross-contextually in all types of things. Isn't that true?
Yes.
Excellent. So we can do that for you. Look at his face. So what I did was, I did the elicitation, but softened it each time. And then, when I started feeding them back to him, I'm putting in embedded commands in as well. And we'll go into that a little bit as well, because David uses embedded commands a little bit differently than I do, and you can use them all different ways. But for me, embedded commands are if the first part of the embedded command is true, the second part, in order for the mind to understand what's going on, must be seen as being true. So let's do an experiment a little bit. So obviously you came here for a really interesting reason, a really good reason, Vic. And you said you got a lot out of this. So doesn't it just make sense now for you to purchase some more products?
Sure. Of course. Of course.
Because it doesn't make sense. It's really-
Yeah, I know. I mean, I'm trying to like read what you're saying and doing, but it's just like, yeah, it goes in and
Right.
sticks.
Because A is true, and I know that because I'm sitting there videoing your testimonial, therefore B must be true.
I
So,
mean,
so when you're doing the criterion values elicitation, you must soften. You must always soften how you're asking, just so I understand you a little bit better. I'm curious. You can use all different types of ways to soften, but it's all about the other person. And the whole thing about it is, if you can't give it to them, just be honest and say, you know what? I really appreciate you sharing that with me, but that's not what I do. I know somebody who can help you, or I'd love to try to help you. Let me ask you this. Who do you know who could use what I do? So the interesting about that, I'm giving you some of my favorites. One of my favorite things is, let me ask you this. David, I was sitting there talking to him about his things. And, and Mark is there, when I just said, let me ask you this. What did I say? What is, let me ask you this?
It's a
permission.
softener.
It's permission.
Well, you've already presumed that you're going.
It's an embedded command.
Yeah.
So I said, I didn't say, let me ask you this. I said, let me ask you this.
Downward inflection.
Oh,
Yeah, curious, man.
totally. How would you do that in writing?
Let me ask you this, comma.
Not exclamation point?
No.
Instead of a colon.
Well, you can use a semicolon if you want. I mean,
Not
but
semicolon, colon.
you can use a colon if you want.
No, I'm saying I think a colon is an account. Forget it.
So the whole point is you're trying to, you're putting in what's called an analog marker into there. So you want that pause, because you want the person unconsciously to say, okay. Because realistically, if anybody ever asks you, Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Think about what you thought inside.
Okay.
So, exactly. Okay. I've gotten permission. So,
And you pay attention more because you're anticipating what they're gonna ask.
right, you're setting it up. You have a question.
Me? You think?
Yeah.
It's okay.
All right. So that's it's a way you're getting unconscious agreement. You have a hypnotic contract. You can ask them anything. I mean, realistically, if any of you have the book Influenced by Robert Cialdini, which we mentioned before, anybody read that besides David? You read it. Okay, great. So let me ask you this, Chris. Do you remember in there the whole thing about being consistent, about consistency? When
Yes.
somebody makes an agreement, they have an internal drive to be consistent with the agreement. So if I ask you, let me ask you this, and you're already saying yes, what color is your underwear? I don't really want to know, but the question is, do you have what's the resistance to telling?
Not wearing it.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was gonna say.
Well, I could ask like one of the women, but
This is a commando question.
it is. Well, okay, so now we know a lot more about you than we thought we did. So,
Really,
Free Willy.
Didn't bring it up.
so see now there's an internal conflict because you already agreed to tell me. So it's very important, especially when you're doing things verbally. You could do this on the phone very, very easily.
That question.
No, well, any
Oh,
question.
oh, okay.
Well, you can ask that question. It depends on who you're talking to.
It sure does.
Maybe
You know, the follow-up
maybe
is, why is that
co-counsel.
important to you?
I don't know. They can. But the whole thing is, it's important to know these things and to be able to use them in an artful way because they go right under the radar, especially with people you don't know. So we go to another thing. Remember we talked about the 3 tonalities. There's, obviously statement, question, which goes up, and command. You have to practice speaking in command tonality all the time. Just be aware of it. In the beginning, it's going to feel weird. The reason why it feels weird is because you know how you normally speak. 99.999% of the rest of the world does not know how you speak. So you can speak with David's many accents to these people. They wouldn't know,
And most of them wouldn't care.
and they wouldn't care. Because they're all in their own mind. They're all, they're barely paying attention to you. Sometimes you have to get right in their face before they know you're there. But the things you say, anything that's in the range of their hearing, it'll be going in. So anybody have any questions on this piece before we move on? Jamin?
Will you just run through exactly you got the arrows, the criterion values of 4 feedback, criterion values again, and then
Yeah, we'll go into that. So, so that'll be good. Anybody want to volunteer to come up? Virgo?
We'll get some boy.
Good man.
Oh, no, you'll come up in the next one. That's good.
Yeah, keep in mind that what James said about 99.99% of the population doesn't know how you speak. They don't care how you speak prior to the moment they met you. So have fun with it. And even if they do know how you used to speak, just like when I went into had my Johnny Depp period, after a while, they'll just accept it.
Right, they won't care. And it'll be really interesting because when you use command tonality in just everyday life, people do stuff for you. When you you go to a restaurant and you say, "Can you bring me another drink?" They'll respond much quicker. You'll get more response because people unconsciously get the tonality much more than they do what you're actually saying. So are we saying that people are like dogs in that way? Well, you know, dogs don't necessarily understand what your words are. They do understand your tonality. Anybody who's ever had a pet, or had a dog, you know, when you talk to them, if you talk to them like babies, they run the show. All right? If you talk to them like dogs, they're actually very good pets, and they don't crap on your floor. You know? All right. So here's the thing, Fergal, are you interested in buying anything anytime soon, or?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So what is that thing, if I can ask?
I'm gonna buy some flights to New York.
Okay, some flights to New York, terrific. Let me ask you this, what's important for you about flights to New York?
I get to go visit my friends, and then I get to go home.
That's terrific, okay, that's great. So, let me ask you this, does it matter, you know, when the flights are, or what type of flight it is?
Well, shorter the better, but a couple of days before I fly from New York.
Uh-huh,
So, just to give me a little bit of a window.
okay, so, ultimately, what will having a short flight to New York give you?
Well, it's easier than having a flight with lots of different stops.
Uh-huh.
It's just less training.
It's less training, and that's really important when you're going to New York, right?
Well, yeah, it's
Yeah.
important in general.
Yeah, definitely, because then you'll have some more fun, you get to meet more people.
Yeah, I'll have more energy to do the stuff I want to do.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, when I get there.
Excellent, that's terrific. So if we can get you a flight that'll get you there nonstop, and it's really quick, look at his face.
What's my face like?
Would you be willing to pay a little bit extra for that flight?
As long as it wasn't too much extra.
Okay.
The price is important.
Yeah, of course, price is important. Price is always important. You know, look, just so I understand you, you know, if something was say $100 difference, would that be something that would be acceptable, as opposed to something that maybe, you know, you have to make 1 or 2 stops?
One stop, maybe not.
Uh-huh.
2 stops, yeah,
Okay.
for sure.
Yeah, 1 stop, though, sometimes, you know, planes are delayed and sometimes it takes a lot longer.
Well, it depends on how long. You
Yeah.
know. If it's an extra 7 hours flight, then yeah, $100.
Yeah,
for sure.
and sometimes that could be very draining, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, you can play with this. What you want to do is get the hierarchy of criteria and then feed them back in reverse order. Now, here's an interesting thing.
In reverse order?
Yeah, because
So we
you-
said the same order before.
well, no, that's echo technique. We're going a little bit different. We're going much
Sorry.
deeper into the criterion values.
Okay.
See, what happens is that you have to start learning to listen. Remember David said they'll unconsciously lean on certain things, on certain words.
Not to, but just to address where Chris is coming from. The thing you have to understand about the echo technique is it's dealing with one level of criteria. Only one. What James is going to teach you is that there is a hierarchy of surface to deep level criteria. Each level has progressively more impact on the person's emotional state. And so when he's talking about reverse order, he's talking about eliciting down to the deepest level and then feeding it back in order of importance back up to the surface structure where we would start the echo technique.
It's fractionated. And that deepest one is the,
Is the most powerful.
Was the last
okay,
one.
that's the
The
last
last one is
objection.
ultimately-
Right, and then, yeah.
So you start with the lightest and then.
Sorry, I
For
didn't mean
you.
to interrupt, but I
Right.
that's what was throwing him off, was to make the distinction between a full-blown criteria values elicitation and an echo technique. You have to understand that you're only getting one level of criteria with the echo technique and using that to access all of them, whereas with what James is doing, he's going deep. Okay, he's going to the heartstrings and just playing a tune.
Right. So basically, it's like this. You know, with echo technique, you're up here. This is the first level. You know, and you're feeding them back, and you get a lot of great results from that. But there are things when you start eliciting the criteria, when they first start telling you things, there are things that are going to be canned answers. You know, I'm sure we've all heard these things.
Superficial.
Very superficial answers, because that's the defense mechanism that people have.
It's too expensive, takes, you know, those kind of.
Right.
Is this kind of like one exercise that you did, David, a couple months ago, where you had everybody ask a partner the same question over and over and over again? Where the,
It's a similar process,
okay.
but when you're going for criteria and values elicitation, the answers will become deeply emotional very, very quickly. It's similar, you're talking about stems, which is where we dig progressively deeper down. It's a similar process with a different outcome.
So basically, you have the first level, and that can often be a canned answer. Something that you just get from somebody, which could be no. Which is where, then you have to go into other things. But, it's, Fergal, just let me ask you again. When you think about those flights that you want to take, what's important for you about these flights?
That it's not too long a flight,
Uh-huh,
but it's not too expensive.
right.
And that it gets me in there at the right time so I can spend a few days in New York.
Right, right. So, you heard what he said. What I heard him stress and was getting you in at the right time so you could spend time with your friends in New York was much more important than price and much more important than the other pieces. Because otherwise you wouldn't be going there, you'd go straight back to Ireland, right? So you have to train yourself to hear it, or if in person, there'll be a physical change. He'll flush a little bit, all the signs even that person's in trance. Funny that, because they're going into trance when they're accessing these things. What are they accessing? States, right? And those are the states that you want to play in. You want to play in the ones that are really hitting home, not the ones that are just surface. I recruit executives, so I am a hypnotist. I don't make my living doing therapy. I make my living using hypnotic techniques. I get, I want opportunity. I want a raise. I want this. I want that. And I really like to be working with really good people. Right? And maybe you've told people that, when you've been in a job interview. Right? Which one was the most important?
Is it the last one?
It's not always the last one.
Which of his answers stood out from all the others?
I was stressed the last one.
I would say.
Well, if that's something that's important for you. So the thing is, what is driving the decision? The thing that's driving the decision is emotional.
Yeah.
And people will then make up a reason to go after that. So, it's very important to soften. So how do you soften? You've got to frame your question around it. When David did this in the beginning, when he's saying, what's important for you about whatever, right? He just kept asking you. Right? Mm-hmm. So Vic, come up here for a second. Thanks, Virgo. Since we did this with you before. Okay, so, that situation, right? You were talking about using it to sell your product, or to sell a roof, correct?
I think the question that he had was, there was a way I like to do business,
Okay,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. Or like having an employee, working with people, yeah.
Working with people, okay,
Yeah.
great. Yeah, just something, because I'm in the business, I'm in the recruiting business, so just so I understand you a little bit better. When you think of a person that you'd like to work with you, what's important for you in this person?
Someone that is reliable,
Uh-huh.
someone that is accountable, someone that will return phone calls, and someone that the work that we do doesn't require a lot of someone to be there like 40 hours a week, 5 days a week, but it might be an hour a day or 2 hours a day, and when you need to be there, you gotta be there. Like when an adjuster shows up, boom, we gotta be there.
Right.
That's the most important part of the
Absolutely.
process, so.
I agree with you. That person needs to be there, needs to be available, or needs to make that the priority, right?
Yeah.
That's terrific. So let me ask you this, just so I understand you a little bit better. If you could get somebody who has this type of prioritization, who has this type of reliability, who can answer the phone and return a call. Would you be interested in hiring them?
Yeah, that's for sure. Then I can come to San Diego and do more cool stuff. Really,
But
yeah.
you see, that when you feed it back, the most important thing was for him, and you use the same thing as Echo Technique when you're feeding it back, is that person who's gonna be there to, at a moment's notice when you need to have it, when the adjuster shows up, because you need to have that business closed, right?
So your cue was the answer that took him the most processing time, because you really had to think about and access the subconscious, and was that the cue for you?
No, the cue for me was how he said it, and also he started flushing more.
He also has this unconscious forward lean. Whenever he hooks into something that really gets him, there's a little subtle unconscious forward lean towards the source of the stimulation.
Mhm.
Huh.
So you were kidding when you said pay attention, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, the sensory acuity piece is tremendously important. So, I have a friend, and this guy really has the ethics of, the work has to come first. He's single, so, he's able to do this. But he's available at a moment's notice when that happens. He's done that before. And he's ultra reliable. This is the type of stuff that he loves. He loves to get this business in. He loves to get it closed. Would you be interested in speaking with this guy?
Yeah.
Okay, true.
Great. Yeah, I mean, that'd be great to find somebody that has those values I'm talking about. So, I mean, if that was possible, that would be fantastic, so.
Can you see the
Yeah.
color change in him? I can see it from here.
So
He also touched his shoulder. He's
Well,
anchoring, you
Sense
know,
of relief on his
well, I could
face.
do that. I mean, I won't say that's an anchor, but
it's a control aspect. too.
yeah. I
Well,
mean,
he's anchoring all of those things he's feeding back.
well, yeah. But then what you do is you just move it to here, right? So when I talk about this, see, so you can make it stronger.
Oh, interesting, that's wild.
But that's something else. That's a little bit outside.
That's level 2.
But here's the thing. What happened is I started talking about what I was doing using his words. That's where it differs from the Echo Technique. You use his words in the story you're telling him about whatever it is you're doing. Question?
I'm just trying to think about ways to say some of your phrases in different ways. So you say, just so I understand you better, if I said that 2 or 3 times, I'm gonna crash. Like they're gonna pick up on something weird.
I wonder if there's a different way, what are the different ways?
So I'm just trying to think of other ways of saying the same thing in different words.
Phone.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you're always off. You don't have to ask the same thing all the
Yeah, yeah.
time. That's the point.
Okay.
You can ask it in different ways, but
Right.
you want to get to the point.
Yeah.
You don't want to ask them, what do you like? You don't want to ask them what they need. Because what they like and what they want, most people ask, what do you want?
Yeah.
Right? Wants are like the weather. Wants change.
So you're asking what they value instead of what they want.
I want to get to the core values, the things that drive them to make a decision about whatever it is we're talking about.
So you make a bunch of phone calls during the day, right? Doing this kind of stuff?
I don't make as many as you would think because I'm very successful in getting people to talk to me using
That's
this stuff.
great. I mean, that'd be great if you had a bunch of those recorded and, I don't know, maybe you do. I don't know if you could even do that. Could you do that?
Why would you?
Then you could use it to help other people understand this process and hear it live and how it's working, even though we're doing that right now. Yeah. All right.
Right? So thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, Vic. If I knew that guy, I would send him over to you.
Great.
If I
Have
found
him
him,
give me a
I
call.
will.
Yeah. I'll pay you a fee.
Yeah, I think JP's kind of like that. He's a good guy.
Excellent.
Okay, so I did promise I would share a little bit about being ambiguous, being vague. Let's see, how much time do we have? Yeah, we're doing pretty good on time, but you guys gotta leave in about an hour, so I wanna get this and I wanna get one other thing in, so you guys get this in and everybody else will have the real secrets after that. Basically.
They deserve it.
If
You know,
piss
it-
me off, I
That
give
was,
you notes.
that was vague. That was vague. So you covered it.
The thing is, most people get into trouble because they're only thinking about their thing, whatever it is you want to sell or yourself, if you're in a dating situation, and you want to talk about yourself. And you're not talking about the other person. And as David was saying yesterday with the bottle, what you're doing is you want to set the frame and you want them to fill it. Because when they fill it, it becomes associated with you. So there are certain things that you have to do. You have to have a certain level of playfulness, you have to have a certain level of curiosity, and you also have to have a certain level of not being attached to the outcome of what it is. Like David was saying, you want to get the person to make a decision, right? However, you can guide their decision. The important thing is to guide them, and you do that essentially by telling them what to do, but you do it in such a way that it opens them up. Especially on the first interaction, when you're opening an interaction, when you're leaving a message or you're sending an email. Texting, people don't write out full texts. You could do that. It's probably not as good an idea. Okay, so when I do things my way and I use the same message, whether I'm leaving a message for somebody, it could be a high-level executive, or emailing them, I obviously say who I am and what I do, because there's nothing to be ashamed of there. It's okay. If they don't like it, too bad. I don't tell them I'm a hypnotist, because I'm not practicing hypnosis therapeutically.
You've gotten it right.
I say, I'm working on a project I'd like to network with you on. It's a great opportunity for the right person. I'd really like to run it by you, see what you think, and see if it might be of interest to you. And if not to you, then maybe someone you might know who would be qualified. So please call back.
I get these calls every week. It's interesting.
About what?
Trying to recruit me or trying to find people through me for positions they're trying to fill.
Yeah, they're trying to network with you. Do you call them back?
Sometimes.
Why?
In case I need them in the future.
Or,
In case I need them in the future.
okay, most people call back because they're nosy, they want to know what the project is.
Oh, yeah, that too.
Yeah. Can you break that down
Yeah.
a little bit? That was very quick. So.
You called them, but they're nosy.
They are.
Yeah. So you leave
Yeah,
them
I'm working on a project.
curious. You leave
Yeah,
them.
I'd like to network with you on a project that I'm working on. Okay? So just jot that down just jot down what I'm saying, if you wouldn't mind, because there's certain things in there.
And
I
a
want
project
to-
sort of gives this image of something big,
Yeah,
something that takes more than one person.
write it down.
Okay, so, working on a project I'd like to network with you on.
It's a great opportunity for the right person. Pay attention to the punctuation, please. Let's see, we've never viewed it's a great opportunity for the right person. I'd like to run it by you, see what you think, and see if it might be of interest to you. And if not for you, then maybe someone you might know who would be qualified. Yeah, if it's an email, obviously, you just say, so please call me at, or if you're leaving a voicemail, please call back.
What was it? Please call me,
Please call back.
please call back.
Do you set any deadline parameters or anything to motivate temporally?
No,
So what I've got is I'm working on I think I might have missed something. I'm working on a project that is a great opportunity.
I'd like to network with you.
Oh, I'd like to. Okay, I'm working on a project, I'd like to network with you. Is a great opportunity for the right.
It's a great opportunity for the right person, and I'd really like to run it by you, see what you think, and see if it might be of interest to you. And if not to you, then maybe somebody you might know who would be qualified. So please call back. Okay? Everybody got it?
Yep.
Okay, so as you know, embedded commands are set off by analog markers. So, take a look at the statement, take a look at what you just wrote, and take a moment to see where the embedded commands are. See if we can find the embedded commands.
See what you think sticks out.
And see if it might work for you, or even be of interest.
Please call back.
Okay, so I'm gonna name them off.
Work for you anyways, definitely.
So I give you my name, so I'm legit, right? Because people who don't give their name are not legit. Then we all know that in our society, right? I'm working on a project I'd like to network with you on. Network with you on. So it's an embedded command, right? But it's also a softener. They know what I do, because I tell them what I do. But it gives them an excuse to talk to me. Remember David talked about you go out to, you meet a girl, I don't know if you guys were here, I think it might have been yesterday, and if you give her, if you hit it off, and you give her an excuse to go back off with you, she'll do it, because it's not a direct pickup, she has a reason, she just needs a reason.
Would you like to come upstairs and look at my etchings?
Yeah. So I'd like to network with you, right? It's a great opportunity for the right person. Okay, so if you're reading it, who's always the right person?
I was just gonna ask you the line when you have, and if not for you, then maybe someone you might know who may be qualified. Does it bolster it if you were to change, and if not for you, perhaps maybe you know someone who might be qualified?
No. And I'll tell you why. Remember the negation thing? If not for you, where does the negation fall out?
Before.
So then it says, for you, right? Not someone who would be qualified. Again,
You are someone.
not only is someone the right person,
So you're
they're
right.
also qualified in their own mind.
Yeah.
Everybody is always qualified in their own mind.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that, and if not for you, sounds like you're taking away something from them. I get that.
Consciously, yes. Unconsciously, they're saying, for me.
Yeah.
So we're speaking at several different levels here.
So you're kind of infusing scarcity at the same time. It's like, oh, if you're not it, I'll give it to somebody else.
Yeah.
They go, whoa, wait. Hold on.
There's no pressure to it. I just, I want to talk to them.
So what you've been hearing when people are calling you, leaving you that message, and you maybe call back, you maybe don't call back, does this sound like a better way of putting it to you? Would you be more likely to call him back?
I usually get the working on a project. I usually get maybe you know somebody if it's not necessarily for you.
Right, but you see, there's a difference in how that's phrased. This is phrased very carefully, right? It's to evoke a response. I want to get a response. So if you just read it, if I sent you an email, or if I just sent it to you, if I left you a message, I'm working on a project I'd like to network with you on. it's a great opportunity for the right person. I'd really like to run it by you, see what you think, and see if it might be of interest to you. And if not for you, then maybe someone you might know who would be qualified. So please call back. How does it feel about calling back?
Well, I, like he was saying earlier, you know, curiosity.
You want to know what the project is?
Yeah.
Everybody
I
wants
mean,
to know.
if you
the
said what the project was, you know, I might not be
Yeah,
interested.
most people do that. They say, I'm working on a job. I'm a recruiter. I'm working on a job. Do you know someone for this? And that gives the other person a chance to say yes or no to you.
Or be a lead.
But they need to call you back to further this conversation.
Well, in order to find out what the
Find
project
out what
is.
the project is.
And then you
Another
said
level,
the-
guys, okay, the phraseology of what he's asking, he's also putting that person that he's calling in the unconscious position of authority, of the person who's leaning down and helping him. It's a reverse validation for him. He's not asking him to do something, for something in terms of he wants to get something. He's asking an opinion. Everybody loves to give their opinions. So he's approaching this person as an expert, not as a target, not as somebody who's trying to recruit. And so it's completely,
It's a show of respect in terms of the way
he's
you work.
playing into when somebody responds to this, it's because there may be some, if they're very aware, they know that there's probably going to be some kind of a pitch. But honestly, it's framed in such a way like he's consulting them, not so much that he's trying to get something from them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And also, it's that very same thing that you mentioned in the dating context, where you set up you set up the frame and then you give the person a reason to go with you. I'm giving them a reason to go with me. They say, I'm just networking with this person. You know, I might know somebody I can help out.
Yeah.
Oh, Victor, I do think there are phrase differences. Some very specific words and structure that James is using that, as I think about it, are different. I think David's right in how this is phrased. There might be a greater chance that I would call back. It also depends on how recently I am in the position which I'm in. So if I just got hired 4 months ago, and then I'm looking for a new position, I'm not going to call back. And if I don't know anybody that is looking for a job, I probably won't call back either, because it's not for me, and I can't help them with anybody else. But either of those two are not the case. And
Or it might just be, I might have hit you at the right time when you were a little bored and you wanted to find out what the project was.
Yeah.
I think it's a big
We're very
distinction.
tempted
I'm
to call
hearing
back,
from
because like, I
Chris.
mean,
Chris,
if
you're
you got a
inserting knowledge
better
about,
offer,
you're
big
inserting
companies
previous
will
knowledge
look.
about James into
you know,
your
you're what are you
evaluation
making, what are you
process.
making?
You know that James
What
is
am
a
I going
recruiter.
There you go. I want
People
this
who's calling
position is
don't know.
100 grand, or 120 grand.
He hadn't said it. What
You
he
wanna-
said is,
and it's with
he's
this
calling
company.
about a project.
okay,
So you
enough said.
But you
That's
do
very
say what you
different.
do, though.
That's very different.
I'm sorry?
You do say what you do, right?
No.
Often.
I would
that was
call
just-
back for the price
I
of
have
phone
just, my
call.
note, that's what it said.
Yeah,
Say
I-
who you are and what you do.
Yeah, I usually do that, but it's just, but they don't care. They can look me up on the internet.
So the one thing I'll tell you, just from as feedback from me who gets these phone calls, if you got me to call you back about a project,
Yeah,
this is not a project.
Sure
I
it is.
No,
it's a
not
project
it's
for
not.
me. It's my project. It's not your
But if you
project.
called me, I'm assuming that you understand what I define as a project. Because you know my work. You're recruiting my types. You know me. And if you told me you've got a project, I'm assuming that project is a project that I would define it as.
Do you
And I'm
know,
like, dude, that's not a
am I
project.
in your business? No.
Hey, if you're recruiting in my industry, you know my
No,
business.
my business is recruiting. My business is not selling things to,
But you got to recruit for the position in which
I
I
understand
might
that.
fill.
I understand that, but I am not, my project, I'm being absolutely upfront with you.
No,
This
you're
is a
not.
project. This is my project. I didn't tell you it's a project in your industry,
I feel slighted. Just telling you.
and you might,
Okay.
and that's okay,
Okay.
because you wouldn't be the guy I wanted to hire.
Well, it's true.
That's a softener.
No, but you're
But
selecting.
it's, you see, it doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
You know, ultimately, I want to find the best person for the role.
Yeah.
I want to find the best person to complete my project. If it's not you, it could
Yeah.
be somebody else. It doesn't matter to me that it's particularly you.
So it serves two purposes.
You know, the benefit is to you if you feel like playing. If you feel like playing, you may win, or I may be able to use you for something else. If you don't want to play, then you don't want to play. It's okay. And if you approach business that way,
Yeah.
you won't have a scarcity mentality.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, people are either willing to play or they're not.
Exactly.
And I don't worry about that this person is not willing to play. There are other people, there's a lot of other people. A lot of my job right now is filtering out all the people who are looking and finding the right one.
I could be the right one.
No,
I could be perfect for that job.
show me, talk to me.
Point taken, there are a lot of approaches to this. You've obviously got my criterion values.
And I'm not a project.
I'm a case.
So that leads us into something very interesting that David was bringing up about that type of, you know, using different strategies. And, you know, Tom Vizzini calls it positions of power. So, yeah, I'd like to show you guys something like that because we do have a little bit of time to do this and a couple of other things. So, I need 2 volunteers. JP wanted to volunteer. Somebody else. Candy, you feel like coming up? Okay, great.
It's funny, you know, it reminds me, the way that's framed, the project is the prize.
Yeah,
The project is the prize.
yeah, it is. For me, that's what it is.
That's it.
No, he's the prize because he has the project. That's
I'm
valuable.
the prize master. I'm making men coming to the door.
That's true. See,
Or
he
as,
doesn't associate his self-worth or his self-identity with whether you say yes or no.
Yeah.
And so he can walk away because there's another one. And that's one of the things that you'll see as a common theme. It's the power in any relationship is the ability to walk away.
Yes.
That's in any, whether it's a sexual relationship, a romantic relationship, a business relationship, or anything. The power resides in the person who's willing to walk away. Okay, the minute you start taking a lot of this shit personally, especially in a business context, that's when you start getting leverage. You start moving yourself into positions.
You're compromised.
Yeah.
Right.
Shafted.
So, you know, you know, it's an interesting thing though when you have that mindset, people respond to it. You responded to it.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah, when he said, fine, I don't need you
And the
anymore.
thing is, once look, if the whole point of that whole exercise was to get the person to talk to you, because if they self-select out by if you make it easy for them to say no, you have no chance. You only have a chance if you're communicating with them. Otherwise, you just don't have a chance. You know, I mean, so if people get specific, I'm working on a project to bring a project manager into this thing, and you say, well, I don't feel like doing that. No. Right? I don't have a chance to speak with you. But if I told you about it, it might become something that you could be interested in.
True. So get over my pissedness. No, I'm serious, because you're right, because you run the risk of pissing me off.
Okay.
Because I'm a busy guy, I'm working 10, 11 hours a day.
Sure.
And I'm gonna call about this crap,
Okay.
but at least you have a chance
Okay,
to
well,
talk me through that,
well,
to get past, right?
Chris,
'Cause if I didn't call you.
I
back,
understand you. I understand you're really busy.
I'm actually, okay, I'm sorry.
So let me ask you this: is there a time when you're not too busy to spend 15, 20 minutes on the phone with me
About what?
about this project I'm working on? I'm working to bring somebody in. I need to network with you on this because you're in the industry. Obviously, it could be something interesting for you, or it may not be. But at least we'll know each other for the future.
Damn!
So I want to be respectful of your time, and I'm willing to be flexible with my schedule in order to speak with you. Would that be okay with you?
He had you as project.
You notice the shade of color changing?
What's the name of that martial arts that you do?
She's done it.
You know?
Right. Okay, so we're gonna do something called positions of power. And the thing is, there are 3 positions of power.
Me, me, and me.
I'm sorry, what did you call it?
Positions of power.
Thank you.
There's dominant, subordinate, and neutral.
Neutral or mutual?
Neutral. Essentially, unless you're Korean, everybody is either in a dominant position, a subordinate position, or a neutral position. In the Korean culture, there is no neutral position. Everybody is either dominant or subordinate to you in the pecking order.
You're top or bottom?
That'd be a caste
That's
system.
how it is.
That'd be a caste system.
It is
right?
very much like that.
In India or something like that?
Not so much, because that's a little bit different, because this has to do with how people interact on an interpersonal level, not necessarily on a cultural level.
Yeah, not a class level.
Right. But in the Korean culture, people are brought up that way. You're either on top or you're on the bottom. That's just how it is. It's very interesting. So if you're interacting in a Korean culture and you take a subordinate attitude, they'll run over you. They will. I mean, they'll just run over you and put incredible demands on you, because for them, that's the signal that it's okay. Now,
It's kind of like animals, right? Is that, do animals have a neutral?
no, Koreans are not like animals.
No.
Just so,
Tough negotiators. Jamie, that's Israeli culture too.
Israeli culture is very much like that as well. You have to prove that you're. Well, but Israeli culture, there is neutral. There is people. There are equals. You got to really prove yourself, but there are equals in Israeli culture. Okay, and usually they're people who aren't Israeli. Are treated as. Okay, so we're going to do this. So you, Candy, I know a little bit about you because, obviously we know each other from outside, but you manage people, right? JP, you manage people, right? So you usually, I would say, just from guessing, you try to influence people as opposed to yelling at them. Okay, and I would say you probably yell at people. No?
I'm actually very easy.
Okay, good.
It's objective is Z, get to Z, because mine is time-based, right?
Yeah.
Do whatever you can, just get it out on Z.
Yeah, and you're pretty firm about that, about the time things.
Well, yeah, because they know they won't get the
It's
check.
okay. It's okay. So, you're generally, in your interactions with your employees, you're dominant.
Right.
Candy, you're probably more neutral with them until something goes wrong.
Probably.
You try to treat people as, as
Yes.
equals, and you have your job, do your job, right? I expect you to do your job.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, great. So, we're going to try an experiment. I'm going to be neutral. I want you to feel how things feel. You take a dominant attitude.
Okay.
You already did. You take a neutral attitude. And I'm going to be neutral. Okay? So we're going to go on a scale, and I want you to notice how you feel inside
Okay.
in this position. Okay? Actually, I'm going to match your attitudes first. Okay? I start neutral, and then I'm going to match attitudes. So,
To me, it does feel a bit like a challenge.
right, because I matched his attitude. Now, I'm going to match your attitude. Feel comfortable, right? Yeah. Okay, great. So, I'm matching their attitudes. But, let's say I want to get him to do something. It wouldn't help to come with a dominant attitude to him, because he's going to say no. But if I take a subordinate attitude or a neutral attitude, notice how you feel.
Okay. All right, good smile.
Because guess what? It's not, none of these are bad. Everybody thinks that they have to be dominant in an interaction. You don't. See, here's the thing. I went neutral with Candy before. Watch this. See? Because I'm going subordinate to her now. Now she wants to help me out.
How so? How did you go
It's
subordinate?
in my attitude.
Rapport?
Inside. It's a different type way of getting rapport. So what happens is, anybody, you guys have kids, right? Who has
Yes.
kids? Most of the people have kids. Most people have nephews, nieces, or have interacted with kids, right? When a little kid comes up to you and asks, you know, nicely, "Oh, can you do something for me?" What happens? Right? Nobody says, "No, get out of here, kid," except W.C. Fields, right? And that's why it was funny. With a cop, do you want to be dominant with a cop? What happens?
It costs you more money.
Yeah, exactly.
Things start hurting.
But if you say, like David said, "Oh, did I fuck up?" He's taking a subordinate attitude towards them. And that leverages getting what you want. Because ultimately, this is about getting what you want. It's not about winning. It's about who wins. You win when you get what you want. Right? I know Mark has a 5-year-old. When he asks you to do something really, you know, for him really nicely, what happens?
I'm a pushover.
That's why I don't have pets. I'm the biggest pushover. They look at me like they're sad and they get whatever they want. Then they get sick because they got too much food or whatever. You know, dangerous to have pets around. It's not good. But it's the same thing. Everybody see Shrek?
Yes.
Remember Puss in Boots? What's his secret weapon? That sad face. The sad face, right? And then you want to give him whatever he wants. Okay, now we're going to switch it up. Candy, I want you to get in the middle. I want you to take a dominant attitude towards JP and see what happens.
Do you want me to stay dominant?
Yeah.
Okay. See, I feel a challenge again.
He feels a challenge, but not as big because it's a woman. Now go subordinate.
Myself?
No.
Oh.
Candy, go subordinate.
Yeah, now I feel like I want to help.
Okay, now go neutral. Go neutral, just match where he is. Use the kinesthetic report.
Comfortable.
Yeah.
This is huge for state control, because how many times you're gonna go up to your boss and punch him out, and you gotta go up and not be in that state to
Well-
get what you want.
But here's an interesting thing, right? And we're going to play with this stuff. So, I'm going to go neutral with JP because he's taking the dominant position. You see how he starts to go neutral? He matches me, right?
So, out of a question then, it's your understanding that you're going in to feel the vibe as opposed to someone who's stuck or used to being always in their own vibe?
Right.
Okay.
And you can change their vibe. That's the interesting thing.
So if you come in neutral, he's just gonna drop down to neutral?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, use your kinesthetic report. And I'm going to show you a quick way to get kinesthetic report. We're going to do it with Candy. What I'm going to do is go neutral for myself. I'm going to create a visual construct of her, looking at her. So it's going to be Candy looking at her. That's neutral. And I'm going to step into it. And that's a very quick way to get kinesthetic report. Right?
Sorry, she was originally in what's?
It doesn't matter what state it is. I created a neutral visual, mental construct of Candy.
In order to, a mental
And he
picture of
steps
her,
in.
right? In front of her.
Yeah,
steps
looking
in.
at her, because then when I step in, I become her, looking back at her.
And you feel that. That's cool.
Here, I'll do JP, whichever state that you want.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
turn
step
around
into
so
my
I can
frame.
see. Look, watch me do it again.
Yeah, it feels like he stepped into my frame, right? I feel everyone has an aura anyways,
Mhm.
so he's now in my aura.
But it was comfortable.
Yeah,
Right, so now feel this. Then you can move them to where they want to go. Now the interesting thing. So watch-
What exactly happened right there?
I just started feeling happy and he started feeling happy. So watch this. So JP, let me ask you this,
right.
you know, because I just really want to know, what's important for you about living in Toronto?
But my money, my business,
Your business, okay, that's
Yeah.
great, that's really important for you.
right?
That's terrific. Just so I understand you, what's important for you about your business?
Freedom.
Freedom. Excellent. That's great. What if I was able to expand your business out to give you even more freedom?
Where are we going?
So that's using your kinesthetic rapport criteria and values. Fertile.
Question, just when you went in with JP and you said you were just matching what he was doing, but since JP was dominant,
Yes.
does that mean you were matching his dominance?
Yeah, when I match his dominance, watch this. You want to come up closer? Can you see? Watch his face. Take the dominant attitude on.
Can you have him facing us?
Yeah,
Yeah, can you face?
Okay.
Watch this.
So actually, I want to start stepping into him.
Right. Now watch this. See, if I just go.
That's awesome. That is awesome.
What you did was you went in neutral. You didn't match him.
What I did was I created the visual construct, stepped into it, and then changed the way I feel inside, and he changed also.
So were you just laughing, being funny or something?
We just kind of like four steps here, so
Right.
let's break it down a little bit.
Right, so the whole thing, the first thing is, you gotta be familiar with these states, because
Right.
these are levers. They're all levers. So Candy, you know, if basically, I do this. Yeah, say you're really busy. I know you've been really busy.
Yeah, I'm busy.
So they, just so they can see you, right?
Oh, hey, hi, I'm really busy.
Okay, yeah, I just need to ask you a question, and, I'm hoping you can help me out with something. I don't, I understand you're busy, but this will only take a minute.
Yeah.
Right, internally, all of a sudden you start feeling like you want to help,
I did.
right? And so that's how these things in and of themselves are incredibly subtle.
Wow,
And, if you approach it, most of the time people, they have their guard up. What happens is that if somebody's very guarded, right, and you approach them as subordinate,
That's another thing I wanted to mention, because I don't, on the angle like this, you can't see James, but I feel his energy shift in me, and you hear me laugh first before he smiles. Right? This is
Yeah.
something you may not have noticed, but this is what's kind of trippy, like, hey, I'm starting to laugh, but this guy isn't really funny. You know what I mean? Like, there's no expressiveness to it.
and we're just expanding out what we did the other day with the kinesthetic rapport.
You overcame his defenses though by stepping in.
I went around his defenses.
Well, it's kind of like the immune system. It's not recognized as a foreign body anymore.
That's
right.
the point.
Yeah.
That's right. But
That's
if
the point.
you have to know which one of these which attitude you want to take going into the interaction.
Kind of like rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah.
I could see a neutral going to a dominant.
Sure.
Diffuse the dominant to a neutral.
Yeah, you could do that.
Are you also saying that if you want him to feel like a subordinate, if you could approach him as a subordinate while he's in a dominant phase?
No,
then he's gonna
but
be-
that drops him to neutral. So he's not he won't be belligerent. Go ahead.
And I'm just thinking about the guys who are power hungry and they want you to feel like a subordinate so they can feel even more
That's fine.
confident.
You know, look, as long as I'm able to get what I want, I'm more than happy to do that for you.
We demonstrated how that worked with physically, when I was working with Dash and with some of the other guys. They were being dominant.
Mhm.
And what happened? They just kept deflating.
Exactly. And this is doing that on an energetic level. Kathleen.
So I have a question for the participants.
Yes, bring them over.
So-
Please. Get into the
So when
frame.
he was imagining you in front of you being neutral before he stepped in, did you feel any shift or not until he stepped into that?
For me, I didn't feel it until he stepped in,
Uh-huh.
and then I
Okay.
felt it immediately, and quite powerfully.
James, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Is there an issue about personal space and where you should place that image that you're going to walk into, or is that overthinking the
That's overthinking
process?
it because it's just, you know, as you're approaching the person, you just create it and just walk through and bring it with you. See?
And this will work across the desk or
Sure.
8 feet away?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You just move it, you know, the whole key is you're creating them, a mirror of them on an energetic level that they respond to. Now imagine doing that when you have a witness.
Yeah, that'd be great.
It's like, yeah, I'm already there.
Or you have a judge.
Yeah, judge would be awesome.
Look at them
A little better than just matching and mirroring.
Yeah, a little bit, but what'll happen is you'll start matching and mirroring with them automatically. Okay, so questions, guys. Do you want to try it? Why don't you guys try it with each other? Take an attitude.
I
One
want
of you.
to see him try to be neutral or subordinate to her.
Okay, yeah. Go ahead.
Okay.
Create an image
Of me stepping into
Her.
the right.
from the back to the front. So then you become her.
Right.
Just try that.
It's a little lighter.
Right.
I've
So,
never seen
so
JP
were you trying to
so
change
cute.
your?
I was trying to change, but it does.
Or Grace?
Okay, so yeah, I guess when I'm maybe on the spot, just trying to practice and being, because I honestly, I still feel amped from this exercise, going from the different states. I feel I have a
Right.
vibration, the vibration. So I don't know what to call it, empathetically, or my modal state. I don't feel as I can express everything right now,
Right.
because I feel.
Sure. Well, this is an individual idea of what David teaches when he talks about vibing a group. When you feel the energy, you match the energy, so you're accepted, and then you change it.
How often do you do this, James?
How often do I do
Maybe step into.
this? We're friends, aren't we?
Yeah.
Do you do this on the phone as well?
You can. You can. You do it with your imagination. You know, here's the thing. When you're on the phone, do you find yourself moving sometimes?
Yeah, it's better if I do.
Because probably you're matching the person on the phone. Or you're mirroring the person on the phone. You
At
just,
least your voice tonalities are dominant, neutral, subordinate as well.
what'll match is what you feel inside. So if I'm asking you, I'm coming, you know, when I'm calling you up, I'm either neutral or I'm subordinate. Until we speak. And then we speak and I say, hey, just so I understand you better, what's important for you about this? And then all of a sudden, I'm hearing, because you've gone into trance. Because what happens is, most people don't ask. They don't ask, what's important for you about what's going on in your world?
Yeah.
People can be married. They forget to ask that. That's why they break up. People's kids don't ask it. They don't ask their kids a lot of times. That's why teenagers don't speak with their parents a lot of times. And they don't understand what's going on. So, giving you a lot of stuff, yeah.
ask you a question. I'm trying to think about this. I deal with situations that are often, I don't want to say near a boiling point, but they can change with the slightest
Sure.
wrong remark.
Right.
If I set somebody off, or if I seem like if I were to challenge them, if
Right.
you do this, then this happens, or so I feel like when I walk into it, I definitely don't walk in subordinate most of the time, but definitely neutral.
Right.
Dominant is because the point is that you can always ramp up,
Right.
but it's much more difficult to come back down. And to come back down, if it was a misunderstanding, then I have to be subordinate to some extent and say, hey, listen, maybe I apologize for any miscommunication, or even if I don't have to go that far, it's just easier to
Yeah, well, you're in an inherently adversarial business.
Absolutely.
That's the whole, they call it an adversarial system.
No, he was talking about at home.
Exactly.
Oh, well.
Sometimes I do just what my dog wants.
He shifted you so well.
Okay, so yeah, you
I
have a
just-
question.
I
We'll
just
get
want-
back to that in a second.
I wanted to ask, is this is like the upper meta chunk, but could we not do the same drills as yesterday, like
Well, that's what we're gonna
confused
do that.
versus whatever, so
Well,
why
we're
the
gonna do that.
confusion?
We're gonna do that, but
Okay.
first, in order to influence people, you don't want them necessarily confused. You will confuse them, you don't necessarily want them going into it.
Remember, strategically, to get what you want, it's your advantage to have at least the semblance of subordinate.
Like,
You know, many times you will get something much more easily if someone perceives themselves as helping you than as being ordered or being forced or somehow maneuvered.
You're right, because even if you form that dominant position and you get what you want, it will only just happen at one time. The other party will walk away and you know, I didn't like that.
But sometimes you have to.
Right?
Sometimes you have to. Sometimes you have to take that dominant position.
Where does that fit into the authority frame?
Well,
that's a
the
good-
authority frame, well, the subordinate's the reverse authority frame, right?
Sure.
Dominant is the authority frame,
But
right?
yeah.
But isn't that the ethos that we want to have relative to our interactions? That was
As-
part of the.
As
that's-
long as you're controlling it, you
Yeah.
don't have to look like you're the dominant
Who's in
person.
control?
So
When
James asking the
you
question.
have
Yeah,
you
it's a
have
passive
kids.
dominance.
You have kids. If they really needed help and they said, "Dad, I really need this," and this is this will be good for me to get to the next level of where I need to go.
Have you talked to your mother?
Yeah.
Because generally, they went to mom first and she said no.
Well, but if she's not around and she came to you,
Yeah.
and the reason why you do that is because you're a self-touched thing.
I'm a
that she is.
sucker, yeah.
Exactly. Because this gets you all the time. That's right. So, realistically,
But I
that's-
was just thinking about the interrelationship between what we've been learning.
Yeah, like
you know.
Steve P. I mean, would he ever drop into neutral or subordinate?
he is a lot of times.
He
because
wasn't interested in blending.
No,
he
he
was
did.
interested.
And
He did.
When he was not cursing his head off,
Yeah.
he actually got a full sentence out. When he was up there all belligerent,
No.
he never finished one sentence.
He skipped.
He skipped around. When he calmed down,
Okay, so here's
it
the
was
thing.
neutral.
Yeah.
He was actually
He
coherent.
he wasn't not finishing sentences. He was speaking in open loops. So a lot of the stuff that he's talking about was going in unconsciously as he closed the loops.
And actually, if I can interject, Steve was real active, real dominant, right? Whose training was he on?
You heard training?
Yeah.
David got what he wanted.
Yeah. But, I mean, for him to do what he did with his subjects, that's how
But he was.
But you gave him authority.
Is Steve,
Hold on.
hold on a second. Is Steve dominant all the time? Perceptually.
Okay.
Maybe. But remember, he came to my training, he followed my rules, he obeyed my, he's in my world.
Yeah, and he related back to you on a couple of occasions as well.
Okay, so if you're in Steve's world, it's David, Steve, you guys, right? Or those guys. So he was dominant, but it's dominant and subordinate in relation to what's going on. When I was, again, I keep referring back to the physical When I was dancing with David, or I was dancing with, who was the other, who was the other?
It was Dash?
Dash. I know I played with you first. You were the most fun.
It's David, Dash, and JP.
And JP.
Yeah.
When David was being in control, right, and he was exerting force, and who was actually in control? That's the point. Is holding one of them will keep you stuck. It's knowing when to shift. That's strategy. But if you don't know about these three positions, which is what James is trying to get across to you, if you don't know and understand the dynamics of these three positions, you can't create the strategy because you don't have the tools. You can't implement the strategy. Okay? Remember, we have to think, anybody can teach you a technique. What makes you a master is how you use it.
Knowing when to use it.
And to do that, you need a technique, you need a strategy to understand the tactics. Yes,
I just wanted to say, Chris, because you were asking how this work, try it. That's all I can say. It's one
We're
thing.
going to be
yeah.
doing it in a moment. Just so we understand, neutral. Anybody ever get a bunch of people together on a project? Project manager back there. I'd say, hey, we're a team here. We have to work together. Right? You're in charge, but you have to make them feel like they can come to you. Right? That's how you run your business. We're a team. Yeah, these are the things you need to do as you're part of the team, but we're all in this together. Look at her face. That's her primary way of operating.
It works.
It works until somebody doesn't do what they're supposed to do.
Well, much more dominant and much more, yeah.
Right, thanks very much, guys. We're going to be doing this in a second. Daniel, you had a question, though, and I didn't answer it, so I apologize. What was the question again?
I was more, and it's funny because David addressed it, but the value of being subordinate, and I was looking at it more as the value of neutral because it seems easy to shift.
Okay, so
It's
come on up
easier
for a
to shift
second.
up.
Come on up for a second. Or unless you don't want to be on camera. If you don't want to be on camera, that's okay. Okay, so you were coming in, you say it was an adversarial situation, you want to be neutral. Sometimes it helps to be dominant. Sometimes it says, hey, you guys messed up, this is why we're here. And then, they start giving you resistance, and you say, hey, wait a second, let's start again. And you drop to neutral. What happens?
I've never encountered that in my world specifically, but it's specifically because of the type of the area I'm in.
Sometimes you want to escalate it.
It would take a very new person.
But sometimes you want to escalate it because it becomes ridiculous. Right? And Kenrick Cleveland tells the story David told the other day. When he was working in the gym, he was selling gym memberships, big steroid guy comes in, really angry, getting really mad, says, there's no toilet paper in the men's room. And Kenrick matched him. He got really mad. He said, damn it, there should be toilet paper in the men's room. You pay a lot of money to be here. And the guy said, hey, wait a second, it's not that big a deal.
Yeah.
And that's what happens. Sometimes you need to escalate it. Sometimes you need to match dominant in order to bring them off of dominant. Because
Well, that's what I'm saying. I can always ramp up to it, but the point is that I'm seeing an intrinsic value to
well, put
neutral
it this way:
because of
have you ever been in a situation where you weren't getting the service that you were getting the runaround?
Yeah.
And then you go down to wherever it is, and you say, "No, you got to do this. You have to fix this for me."
Do you ever have to deal with a secretary who's playing gatekeeper?
Yes.
That's dominant. I do it all the time. If I go neutral or I go subordinate with that person, sometimes that works. If I get to talk to them, yeah, it works. Sometimes if they don't put me through, I just ask for the person. And if they say, what's this in relation to? I say, it's confidential.
I have a quick
Coming from the coroner's office, you should probably be able to get through with it.
No, I just say it's confidential. They're trained. But you see, people who are gatekeepers are trained for certain things, okay? But they're not the ones who know the secrets of the company. They don't know what's going on at the higher levels. If you say with congruity, it's confidential, they'll put you through because they want to kick it up the ladder. Because if it's really important and they didn't put you through, what happens to them?
Oh, yeah, they're in trouble. Yeah.
Right?
I have a question about when you are meeting with these people and you're creating that frame and you're
Uh-huh.
stepping into it, is it better to be at a 45-degree angle, or like maybe if someone's...
You don't have to, it's okay, because it's not you're not confronting,
Okay,
you're creating them and feeding it back to them.
okay.
We got a few minutes, so you guys want to do this as an exercise?
Now's your shot.
What about these guys right here? That
They got a few minutes to do it.
Let's do it.
They don't, as long as they're not on camera, it's fine, but they need to
Yeah.
practice.
Okay, I mean, or do you have questions or
Okay,
what?
Brad,
Do you have
go to
other
that.
questions
Yeah, we'll go to
before
that.
you-
And pair up with two different people, because you know each other, you can practice other times.
Sure. Sounds good.
And practice this, again, be neutral when you step in. Because otherwise that person will not, you will not match that person. And then just let your kinesthetics match them to where they are.